This is my approval for my $20,832 Paycheck Protection Program loan, which essentially becomes a grant as long as I use it on approved expenses, 60% on payroll, essentially paying myself because I operate a non-employer firm, and 40% on other approved expenditures. As you very well know, if you've been watching any of my previous videos, I initially applied for the Paycheck Protection Program loan using Bluevine, a fintech organization. They canceled my application. I don't know why. I called them. I don't know why. Oh, why? I called them and they told me the application was canceled. So I partnered with Womply through their fast lane system. I initially ran into the snag where I found, and all of you alerted me to it, that the system asked applicants whether he or she received an economic injury disaster loan in 2020. Immediately, my antennas started popping out of my head like, dee, 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 dee. This may be because if the Small Business Administration disbursed an economic injury disaster loan to your business between January 31st, 2020 and April 3rd, 2020, then you would have to deduct the amount of economic injury disaster loan that you received from the Small Business Administration from the amount of Paycheck Protection Program loan/grant for which you qualify. So I took it to the major stakeholders over at Womply, the partner with the referral program, and I spoke to the CEO directly. Went ahead and pinged them on LinkedIn and asked whether the reason that you're asking people if they received an economic injury disaster loan in 2020 is if because you received between January 31st and April 3rd of 2020, you had to deduct that from the Paycheck Protection Program. They kind of brushed that off, that theory, and they stated no, it's because that complicates the application process, and therefore such an applicant who received an economic injury disaster loan in 2020 would not qualify to use the fast lane system. They would have to go with another lender. However, shortly thereafter, they went ahead and eliminated that question, and they modified it to ask whether you received an economic injury disaster loan between January 31st and April 3rd. So I said that I didn't receive it because I already knew that it had to be, or I assumed correctly that it had to be because if you received an economic injury disaster loan, again, between the dates that I just mentioned, then you had to deduct that from the Paycheck Protection Program loan for which you qualify. So I went ahead and submitted my application, and then I found that in the document that you have to sign that they ultimately submit to the Small Business Administration to fully process your Paycheck Protection Program loan/grant, in the box which reads, what is your average monthly payroll? They added the real amount, which was $9,256.50. And they were supposed to enter in $8,333.00. The reason that they got $9,256.50 is because the system divided the full gross revenue that I entered in line 7 of my Schedule C IRS Form 1040. They divided that by 12. They multiplied it by 2.5 to come up with $9,256. However, the instructions on the application reads that if the number is over $8,333, it has to be $8,333 because you're supposed to shave the amount of money that you generated, your gross revenue, over $100,000, which would give you $833 Paycheck Protection Program loan/grant of $8,333. So, being that it was erroneous, I didn't want to mix anything up. And I told them, listen, you have to fix that entry. And I did not sign that document. So I worked directly with their stakeholders, and they were working nonstop to ensure that they would fix the error that entered that erroneous number. They stated, listen, you're gonna have to cancel the application. I said, go ahead, cancel it. Let's do it again. Then when I did it again, this time they actually gave me another document with the same number, $9,256. Then they did it again. They canceled the application one more time. When I submitted the application, however, I noticed that there was not a field requesting my legal business name. All the system asked me for was my government name, my personal name, Neil Rodriguez. and I entered my name there, and then I entered my business name in the field labeled DBA. So that caused a problem because in the application, the business name came out as my name, my personal name. So that's a problem, especially me, because I operate a limited liability company and my business bank account where I receive funds for my business is under my business's name. So I'm like, I don't want any conflicts when they're trying to wire that money. I want that in the stash, guaranteed, okay? Nothing's guaranteed. However, increase the chances of success always when you do anything, especially when operating a small business in this country, or for that matter, in any other part of the planet, if you are there, or even in Mars. Anyway, so I told him, can you correct that? And then I figured, I was like, listen, I operate an LLC. I told the affiliate ambassador, the person, the liaison over at that organization at Wampley, I operate an LLC. And this is the first time she told me this. You can't use the Wampley Fast Lane system if you operate an LLC. I'm like, oh my God, you should have told me this earlier. So they referred me to use Funding Circle. Again, I told you I work with Blue Vine. Prior to that, also, when I worked with Wampley, they actually partnered with Cross Rivers Bank, and I tried to process my application through them. I think that was the system that also made an erroneous entry into that application. Nonetheless, I partnered with Wampley, and I told people that I was using it. I never give financial advice. I tell you exactly what I am doing to be successful at receiving disbursements from the federal government and other agencies, public and private, as I have listed in my spreadsheet at bit.ly/bizss21. Go ahead and visit it. You've got everything you need right there. So you don't have to twiddle your thumbs while you're waiting for approvals on this thing. So I went ahead and applied with Funding Circle. I also filed an application with Smart Biz Loans. So that's one of the things you want to do. Go ahead and file applications wherever it is that you want, okay? Or rather, that's what I did. It's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but that's what I did. My method, my strategy was that I'll go ahead and file applications, and whoever gives me the form that I have to sign that gets ultimately submitted to the Small Business Administration to get me an E-Tran number and put the processing of my Paycheck Protection Program loan / grant into the SBA system, I'll stick with them and I'll just cancel the other applications. So I ended up filing an application with Funding Circle and Smart Biz Loans. Whoever is first, I'll ride with them. So that said, Funding Circle was the most responsive. They gave me a representative with whom I can communicate, and he stated, listen, you got to get this document to me, this other document, get me the voided check, etc. He sent all the documents to me, told me, he gave me estimated timelines as to when I should expect more documents for me to sign. I went ahead and submitted everything, and lo and behold, I get the approval that I'm showing to you, that I showed you in the beginning of this video. 2 weeks after I initiated my application for the Paycheck Protection Program loan / grant. Then I told Smart Biz to go ahead and cancel my application. I'm not sure they did that because they're still sending me emails. However, they've never sent me the Paycheck Protection Program loan / grant application. So we're forward on this. I even got a text reading that I'll be getting the funds wired within 6 to 7 days time. This is money that I am tapping into. Why? Because it is my tax money, just like it is your tax money. The money that you go ahead and contribute towards this government when you're buying products, you're buying your iPhones, you're buying your kicks, you're buying the shirt on your back, when you're buying food, ramen noodles, or a lobster, whichever it is that you decide, whatever it is that you prefer. Bon appetit to whoever's eating the ramen noodles and the lobster. Anyway, this is your money. It's in the stash, and now's the time to break the emergency glass because we are going through potentially the roughest, it is the roughest, and the worst economic and health crisis in our generation. The Small Business Administration has disbursed 10,288,286 Paycheck Protection Program loans, which essentially becomes a grant as long as you use it on approved expenses, amounting to a whopping $770,731,428,510 in Paycheck Protection Program loans, which essentially become grants as long as you use it. If you operate a non-employer firm, which I suspect most of you run, to simply pay yourself 60% of it. You can use 100% of it if you'd like, 40% on other approved expenses. So go ahead and tap into it. Use all the options available. Again, if one thing does not work, try another. I had to, again, apply for the Paycheck Protection Program loan/grant with several fintech providers. I tried CDFIs because, as I had stated before, I get information directly from the Small Business Administration. And I saw that the Small Business Administration would be prioritizing applications submitted by CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions. And I got a full list of them. I went ahead and tried to contact them. Nonetheless, they couldn't take any calls because they were inundated with calls regarding the Paycheck Protection Program. So I'm like, let me just stick with my fintechs. The fintechs, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because this is a new system. And they even updated the system to allow for the factoring of your gross income on line 7 of your Schedule C form, IRS form 1040, as opposed to the previous rule, which instructed you to use line 31 of your Schedule C, which is your net income. And unfortunately, people who submitted their application for the Paycheck Protection Program loan prior to this rule that allowed you to factor in that gross income, now they cannot go back and edit that. So if you have not applied for the Paycheck Protection Program loan, you have to also ensure that the institution that you plan to use to process your application for the PPP is allowing you to factor in that gross income. Wampley was probably the first organization, I believe. No, as a matter of fact, according to my experience, as far as I know, it was the first organization that allowed you to factor in that gross income, which is why I partnered with them. And if you filed your application with Wampley, they would give me a referral fee of anywhere from $100 to $200. And a number of you, as you can clearly see on the screen, have reported that you've been able to successfully process your application for the Paycheck Protection Program loan/grant using Wampley. Again, not financial advice, simply what I try to do. I could not do it because they're only taking applications for sole proprietors, independent contractors that are generating small business revenue, non-W-2 filed income by working with Uber, working with Lyft, DoorDash, etc. People that are independent contractors, sole proprietors, don't have everything formalized. I have my LLC organized with the state of Florida. I have my employer identification number. These are all things that you have to get in order. So you will be able to enjoy all the benefits, all the resources available to you, just as I list in my spreadsheet at bit.ly/biz/SS21. I list a numerous amount of information, resources, and application portals to grants for everyone. I even have grants for your high school students. As a matter of fact, my nephew's about to hop on that grant for high school students through the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory. I actually worked with them in the past, but that's not influencing the decision one bit because his mother's actually handling the application and they're about to approve him. It's a grant of about, I think it's like it's about $7,100 for your high school students. I got a tab for veterans, I've got a tab for individuals, and I've got the free education tab. That is probably the most valuable piece of information that I can include, that I can list and outline in the entire spreadsheet, because through the information resources, ladies and gentlemen, that's where you will learn to do practically whatever it is that you want. You want to build the elevator from here to the moon. There's probably a resource for that in there. I'm going to continue to populate more resources in that spreadsheet, especially the free education tab. Take a look at the search engine optimization course that Google is holding on there. That's where I've been able to make my bones. Marketing businesses using the search engines through the practice of search engine optimization, the process of configuring your website to include relevant keywords and have other websites point links back to it, to the democratic process. That's the way the Google algorithm works. And I've been able to represent clients on the search engines, on social media, been able to work with the 2012 Barack Obama presidential campaign, AOL, the Nielsen Company, you name it. And this comes from someone without any stretch of a silver spoon in my mouth or any type of resources whatsoever. I came from one of the most impoverished neighborhoods in New York City, Jamaica, Queens, New York, South Suicide, Queens, baby. This is where 50 Cent came from. This is where Nicki Minaj came from. The Lost Boys, one of them, he died unfortunately. A number of people. You know Queens. Queens is where from Nas is from. I'm from Jamaica, Queens. And trust me, it was nothing nice. You used to see across the street from where Donald Trump was born. That's a different time when he was born. There was a crack spot, and it looked like Thriller. You know, Michael Jackson's music video Thriller? Because you had a bunch of zombies, aka crackheads, just crowding and asking, trying to see, doing anything. You had pregnant ladies offering themselves sexually just to be able to get another blast of that crack rock, man. Sucking on that glass, you know what I'm talking about. Understand what I'm saying? Once you hit the crack, you don't go back. And I had friends that had fallen into that trap. And I grew up with these people, killers, stick-up kids. Some kid that we grew up with, a law professor in Columbia, raped him, threw some roofies, threw some drugs into his drink, passed out, woke up raped in his apartment. He came back with a couple of his friends. They tied him up in the bath. Actually, he did it by himself. He tied him up in the bathtub and smashed his head in with a brick. Then he did it to another. He became a serial killer after that. Another dude blasting his guns in the air, blasting a Uzi in the air, telling people, listen, give me loot, give me loot. In other words, robbing drug dealers, understand? Dead at 25 years old. His fellow gang members, all the bloods out there, they started throwing his body up in the air. Bonkers, absolutely bonkers from where I originated. So, if I can capitalize and leverage all the resources available to me in this country, why can't you? And I did it all through education. Got a scholarship at the New York University by working my ass, my butt cheeks off in the Borough of Manhattan Community College. I had to retake most of the educational lessons that I was supposed to pick up back in high school, but I graduated high school by the skin of my teeth. Nonetheless, kicked ass in college, went to NYU, took that information. I didn't want to deal with the internet. Channel 7 WABC News tech reporter, he force-fed the internet to me. He really force-fed it to me, but he held the workshop. Mr. Sri Srinivasan, he was the digital officer for the city of New York at one particular point in time. Force-fed it to me. I became a help desk technician, started to grow Ethernet cable in my veins after taking 60 calls, then worked on internet marketing and got to a place where I operate a small business, and we ran into this pandemic. And listen, the one thing that is guaranteed is that another disaster is coming. So you better be prepared, because the more assets you control, and one of the most valuable assets that you can control in this country being operating a business or a small business, you got to remember, there are over 25 million non-employer firms in this country. The whopping majority of all small businesses constitute 99.9% of all businesses in this country, employing 60.6 million U.S. workers, half of the U.S. workforce. Said it a number of times. Join the party. And there are no excuses. I know that a number of you write all kinds of cases, and I'm sorry for everything you've been enduring. But listen, I'll show you the video next time. I'll probably show it to you right now. There's a dude I saw yesterday. The man with the iron lung. He has to live inside a machine, basically. The only thing that is exposed is his face. Understand? And people have to shave him. He's become a lawyer. He's become an author. There are no excuses. No excuses. He writes holding a pencil or a stick in his hand, and then he's tapping on the computer and stuff. Come on, man. This dude is remarkable. And you can't do what you need to do to save and feed your families, to ultimately save this country, because ultimately you are going to do it because it's a collective group. And if you contribute towards this economic growth as a small business, you amplify the amount of effort that you put in to save this country, save this planet.